Most movement outside the gym happens unconsciously. So what I mean by that, like if you're thirsty, like for example, you're right there, you go ahead and you go drink your water, do you think I'm gonna flex my bicep, I'm gonna flex my wrist, and I'm gonna use my deltoid to do that? That's not what you think about. You're thinking, I'm thirsty, I'm gonna drink this water. Boom, everything else has to happen simultaneously. So the nervous system is the one that really creates the movement pattern for us. Because if we need to think about everything that we have to do, we're gonna be highly inefficient. It's gonna take you like 5 minutes to try to get that water up if you think about every single movement. Yet, when we're in a gym environment, that's how we teach people things. Spread your feet, spread your glutes, like back straight. So there's a lot of different cues going on, and it's like really jumbles up in the head, and that's not really how we function outside of the gym. And the nervous system will always use the path of least resistance if it exists. And I'm gonna expand on that a little bit more. We can go on the next slide. So the nervous system is conditioned to survive. We need to get from point A to point B, and it's always gonna find the best strategy to do that. And I use an analogy of driving. So who drives here? All right, just real quick. How long does it take you to get here?
15 minutes to take.
15 minutes, okay. So your house to point B, Equinox, 15 minutes. So the first day at work, you come in and you need a GPS because you've never been there before. You're like, all right, I'm gonna follow GPS, cool. Next day, you might use it again, but after a couple weeks, after a month, 2 months, you're just autopilot, right? You leave your house and then you're here, you don't even know how you got here. That's your default movement pattern. Now, let's say, for example, one day you start driving and there's a detour. Oh, you can't go this way anymore, you gotta bank a right. So you bank a right, and you hit these potholes, you hit traffic, you hit stop signs, you got to work, and now it took you 30 minutes, about twice as long. You're like, okay, cool. Next time you come, same detour, 30 minutes. You repeat that detour over and over again. Now it took you 30 minutes to get there, and now that becomes your new default movement pattern. And that's where I see a lot of people get stuck when they have an injury. Like maybe they twisted their ankle, but they still need to go from here to there. They're still gonna walk. They're just gonna walk a little bit differently. So there's that detour, and it happens in unconscious mind. You don't even think about it, yet it happens. We can go to the next slide. So this is kind of what we just talked about before. You get to point A to point B, the journey is just a lot less pleasant. Now people will go through a bunch of these detours throughout their life. They might twist their ankle when they're like 9, and then at 15 it might hurt their back, and then now they're still moving around, but they're just a lot less efficient. Next slide. Now imagine a third situation. You start driving, and you can't go to the right anymore. You gotta bank a left. Cool, you banked the left, and that left took you on a back road. And you got to work, 8 minutes, right? 8 minutes you got to work. So the first thing you do, you recognize that and you're like, man, that was sweet, I'm gonna do that again. Because as humans, we're always geared towards things that's gonna give us more pleasure or things that's gonna take away pain. This mechanism is ingrained in our evolution. So what do? Next day, you take that same left, 8 minutes, 8 minutes, 8 minutes, until that 8 minutes become your new default movement pattern. So essentially what we do in PhysioX is this. We need to figure out A, we need to figure out B, what is your current strategy that you're using, and how do we give you that detour? So back to that analogy, it's kind of like I'm sitting in the passenger side, you're driving, and I'm just going, take a left here, take a right here, boom, boom, boom. Got here, cool. Now I want you to go ahead and do that again on your own, over and over again. But in a lot of rehab, where it goes wrong is that the professional sits on the driver's seat, and they're driving the client next to them, and they're falling asleep, and they get to A to B, they wake up, but they have no idea how they got there. That's like if you go to a chiro and they crack your back like twice a week for like a year, there's no real changes happening to the body. You just go back to your old default over and over again. Massages, same thing. So how do we make this happen? We can go to the next slide. So the big picture, sorry, skip one slide. So the big picture, no, we're good. We'll go back to the one previously. So the big picture is that we're trying to get people to get from point A to point B, whether it's just from here to here, and have it feel different intuitively. As in, you don't have to think about it. We don't have to think about pushing a butt back, reaching down. It just happened. Because once we start thinking, that's not really how real life functions. So we want people to simply move without conscious thought. Like we can get people out of back pain without having to think about, I have to sit up tall. I can just be brain dead and think about it. I can start doing a squat without pain, without having to think much about my form. I just do it and I come back up. And we can go to the next slide. So what does this look like in an actual session? So this is a client of mine that we did this one through Zoom. The left picture, I told her to rotate to the left. If you can just look at the picture on the left, you see that movement? You can tell it's just not smooth. You can tell it's off-centered, and she's coming to me for neck pain, shoulder pain, hip pain. They were gonna operate on her. They were gonna do this giant surgery on her hips, major surgery. And I said, I don't know if you need all of that. And she's hyper aware of everything in her body. She's hyper aware of her arches. She wants to keep her arches nice and strong. And so when she moves, not very fluid. The picture over there on the right, I put a towel underneath her left foot. And I just said, hey, press on the towel and start rotating. And then now she just got a lot more smooth with that motion. Because when you rotate, your feet actually changes shapes.